Is up? Welcome to the Existential Stoic podcast. Do you feel uncomfortable? Are you tired? Feeling like tired? Just crappy? Every day is difficult. Oh God.
I literally didn't think I was going to make it the other day.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I felt that way this weekend too. It's so weird. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about dealing with discomfort. I don't know that we're going to have any answers, but talk about dealing with it at least. Dealing
Yeah,
with it's not solving it. That's the important thing to keep in mind.
that could be all of it.
Oh, I'm Danny, and my buddy Randy. What's up, Randy?
Yeah, Danny.
Have you felt discovered recently?
Oh my gosh. I literally thought I wasn't going to make it. Like I thought I was just going to explode, like just spontaneously combust. I literally thought I was
Uh,
going to do that the other day.
you know what? You know what's funny? What happened to me this weekend was I think I overdid it with work last week, and I was just like burnt out, and I was tired. But I always get to a crucial point where I get mad at myself for being either relaxing or being tired, which is not a good thing to happen to you. I don't think it's a good thing in general. But then I get frustrated with myself, and then I start to get like I don't know if it's like anxious or like something because of that. Does that make sense? Like I started to get like,
Oh yeah.
your brain starts running, your imagination starts running, like I'll never be able to do anything ever again. And then I mean, I felt fine today. But you know what I mean? Like, and part of it was I wasn't sleeping well. I totally overdid it for like 9 days straight. I was working like 10, 12 hours on my computer a day, which is just too much in hindsight. And like,
Hmm.
it happens.
Dude, I know it. You need that like extra version of you to just tap you on the shoulder and be like, you need to go to sleep. Like just go to
Yeah.
bed. You're tired.
And you know what, too? It was like one of those things where, dude, we were like, I was sitting on the couch, like, I was like, all right, I'm gonna relax tonight. Like, this was like last week, and like we're watching TV, and like I'm like, I'll just get my computer and it's like, it's just you burn yourself out so fast, and then I get super uncomfortable, and then I get mad at myself, and then the whole
Oh
thing.
my God. Yeah. Dude, for me, it was like I was just uncomfortable and then I was basically having this argument with reality. Like reality was like, you're uncomfortable. This sucks. And then I was arguing, I should be enjoying this. And then reality sucks. And I was like, but I should be enjoying this. And it was just like this conflict. And I literally thought I was just going to like pop. And then I listened to one of our old episodes talking about some stuff. And we were like, we always expect life to be good and everything to be happily
Yeah,
ever after. And I'm like, that was me. I literally thought it
yeah.
was supposed to be happily ever after, and life sucked. And it was just this like huge thing that once I got that, that I was just like, okay.
Do you know what's funny? I think maybe because the holidays are coming up, I've been thinking about this. But it's like we have been so screwed up by like because old fairy tales and stuff were like dark, and a lot of old stories were like dark. Like even if you read like the Iliad, the Odyssey and all, like yeah, they're fun, they're fantastical, but they're also like a lot of terrible things also happen. I think like all these like kids movies now like are too everything's sunny at the end and like there's no problems and like we all have this expectation, but it's just not. It doesn't match reality like even slightly. Because I know exactly what you mean, right? You like argue with yourself. You're like, I should be enjoying this. This should be good. It's like the same thing that people do on like Thanksgiving when they're like, we're a perfect family, but it's like, no, you're not. But like, let's pretend like we are for a day, and everybody's just miserable. It's like,
Yeah. And I was like, I'm never going to be able to do this again in my life. My whole life is a sham. I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, this is, I just call it right here. Like, this is it. And I'm
just
like,
lay down
literally,
on the sidewalk.
yeah, yeah. It's like literally I mean, yeah, craziness. So,
It
anyways,
is funny.
I would, yeah. So it brought me to thinking about like, maybe things aren't supposed to be great all the time. Like, maybe they are supposed to suck sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are. I'm starting to think too that like this whole like emphasis on happiness is like not a good thing. I think it's not a good thing at all. Not that we should be miserable. I don't think we should be miserable. I think that's a bad idea too. Or like, I think there's like that fine line of like recognizing like, dude, there's gonna be bad days. You're gonna not feel good sometimes. It's totally okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You're just a person. But like I think we're told like this story on the other hand that like clouds everything. We expect just to be like comfortable all the time. Fine. It's like that's not life though. And it's a very weird thing because it's hard to like, I don't know, it's hard to bring the two together, if that
You
makes
do,
sense.
you do bring a good point there because I think we have like a misconception of happiness. Like, I think that the happiness that that this happiness that you're supposed to have, that's like a perpetual state of happiness. I think it's just like the happiness in just recognizing you are wherever you are right now. I think that's the happiness. Is like, oh, I'm miserable right now. That's pretty cool. What's miserable like? And it's like, and then
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I really want to punch someone in the mouth right now. Like that's how I'm feeling. Awesome. What does this
Yeah.
feel like? Like I think that's the happiness that lasts forever. But this idea that like, oh, everything's good, like everything's working out great, my life is
Yeah.
awesome, it's all easy, no pain, great. That doesn't last.
It's funny. I think Camus was onto something because he thought like, the good life was more of like an accumulation of experiences, not like judging them good or bad, just an accumulation of them and then recognition of the absurd. Because when you realize it's absurd, you can laugh at all of it, right? And like, but it's not happiness, not in the way we think. It's funny too. Like, I was just thinking about this the other day because I was teaching one of my classes. We were talking about Aristotle's notion of happiness, right? But it's eudaimonia, but they always interpret it as like translate it as happiness, but it's like not a good translation because he meant like successful, like well-being, like you're doing well and succeeding in life. Not That's not the same thing though as what we mean by like an emotional state, right? And I think that
Mm-hmm.
there's this big disconnect. Yeah.
Dude, I mean, that's a great point. So, I was like, one of the things that was frustrating me was this person kept asking me the dumbest freaking questions. Okay, like questions is like literally you're just trying to get me to answer. Like not that it's necessary that you're actually interested, but you just wanted me to like say something. And it was bugging the heck out of me. And and then I sat down when I was just like very discomfort, like just I was a mess. I sat down and I was working through the stuff that I learned in Loving What Is. And it's like, is this true that they're asking the dumbest questions ever? Can I absolutely know that's true? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, well, what happens when I think that way? And I'm like, I get like I'm about to explode.
Angry.
And then
Yeah.
dude, yeah, furious. Like, and then it was like, well, what would you be like if you didn't have that thought that they're asking the dumbest questions ever? And I was like, well, I would be like, that's a really interesting question they're asking. Like, why do they even care? Like, what's going on? Like, I was like, there's something is very curious with them. Why on earth are they asking this stuff? And then he like kind of opened my mind where I stopped being like angry, like totally furious with them for asking these stupid questions. I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, this is just
Yeah.
crazy. It
You know what?
reminded me of the absurd, like you were talking about there.
Yeah. No, I think it is because it is all absurd. And I think, but we want to, I think Camus makes a really good point because it's all absurd, but we want to give it meaning and make it all meaningful, but there is none. And so we get caught up in this, and then that makes us uncomfortable, depressed, anxious, right? Because we expect things to be a certain way that reality just isn't. And I think it's like you were saying, right? That disconnect between like what is actually happening versus like what I imagine to happen or want to happen, and they're not connected. And I think, the absurd is a great way to look at it because it is all kind of absurd when you think about it. All the things we do, all the stuff we're after, all the meanings we give to things, the way we lose our shit, and like,
Yeah.
and our expectations are just kind of crazy too.
Okay, so here's another thing that Alfred Adler, I was listening to a book about him, and his whole idea is that like things don't happen to us and then we have outcomes. There are outcomes that we want, and then we basically create the situation to make that
Hmm.
outcome. So like I started looking at this person who was driving me mad, and I was like, I was like, maybe I have a story that I just don't have a good relationship with them, and I'm looking for this crazy stuff to actually be like, here's evidence. They're asking stupid questions, of course, like,
Yep.
and there's no way to prove one way or the other. It's just like,
No, there's
am I the
not.
victim or am I the creator of this situation? And that's it.
But I think that's the point, though, right? Is that there isn't, and that either way, you're making it meaningful in some way. And usually, I think that's a good way. Like usually, it is. It's a good way to get perspective because a lot of times it's because we already think something and we're just trying to justify it. I totally know what you're talking about too, and it is a weird phenomenon. When you catch it, it's weird, right? Because you're like, and then it makes you wonder, like, are you the asshole, or is it the other person, or is it just like, are you just misreading things
I think we
entirely?
always know the answer.
Yeah, yeah,
Dude, the other
yeah,
day I was
right. It's
writing and I
always
was like,
me.
why do I always have to apologize to everyone? Dude, it's like, oh
Why
my
is this
gosh,
a trend?
the ego on
Yeah,
this guy. It's out
yeah,
of
I
this
know.
world.
It is funny, isn't it? It's true
Oh
though, dude.
man.
I feel that way all the time. Like there's times where sometimes I can't tell, like if I'm really angry at the other person or if it's just me because like you expect it, and like so you just translate it that way. But I think that's the funny thing because like it's amazing how fast we can flip a switch and like look at things differently if we let ourselves. So I think that's the other side of it. Like the discomfort, like most of the time, like we cause it ourselves, I think. And it's because of these expectations, imagining things, wanting to justify something rather than just like letting ourselves be in the moment. I think the Taoists were onto something about just like just existing with the flow of things and not trying to act against it. Because I think a lot of times we feel discomfort, it's like we're turning against the current and we're trying to force ourselves through it rather than going with it, you
Mm,
know?
that's a good point. And like the beginner blames others, the intermediate blames himself, and the master blames none.
Yeah.
Like, who knows? We're all just not puppets with some puppeteer behind here,
Yeah.
and we just have to experience whatever the puppeteer is doing with the puppets. Like, who knows?
Yeah, do you ever have like I mean, there's been so many times where like I've gone to do something like that either is like I've never done before, I don't even know if I feel and like that just for whatever reason that day I don't feel like doing it. And so like I'll be miserable before we get there, because I'm like, I'll feel like blah, like, a big baby. But then when I get there, I'm like, you know what, let's just whatever, I'll just try and have a good time. And then like you end up having a good time if you just let yourself. But it's more like I swear to God, like I've been thinking more and more about it. I feel like our discomfort is like a block we set ourselves. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
limit on ourselves to like either not have fun or because of stress. I think it happens
Mm-hmm.
sometimes too because like we're worried about other stuff and you feel like whatever you're doing now is kind of getting in the way of being able to do that stuff or whatever. So kind of, the stress of that, making you anxious, whatever, that can also cause it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's tricky.
So like part of dealing with discomfort is actually being uncomfortable. Like
Yeah.
this was a mind trip for me too, because I was uncomfortable and I didn't want to be. And that was causing a huge problem. And
Yeah,
then
it
and then
is
when
a
I sat
problem.
down, and I was working through it and thinking about it and everything like that, I was like, oh, okay. So let's just imagine in the future that I'm just uncomfortable. The rest of this time, I'm just uncomfortable. And it's like, cool, I can deal with that. And problem was gone, you know?
You did, yeah, but you did a good thing though because you sat down and thought through it. I think most of us don't give ourselves like. I've been trying to do that more whenever I notice like either like I'm feeling stressed or discomfort or any kind, right? Is sitting down and actually thinking it through for a minute instead of just because I think it is you have to catch it. If you catch it and acknowledge it, you can start to figure out a way to get around it. But
Mm-hmm.
most of us, I think, we don't do that. We don't give ourselves an opportunity. We just blow up or whatever, and get frustrated, get
Yeah,
worse.
and like writing with it too, because I,
Okay,
I had
yeah.
to I had to write it out because I was just like I was literally about to blow a fuse. Like I thought I was like, if
Yeah.
I'm ever gonna have a coronary, like this is going to be the moment.
This is it. This is the big one.
I know. I was like, I'm literally gonna
That's
lose it.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's yeah, writing it down, I think trying to get the other person's perspective when you write it down is also really helpful when you're dealing with others,
That's a good
because we do
point.
get frustrated a lot with other people, whether it's like people at work or people at home, it's so easy to like, they don't understand me. They're not, listening, man, man.
Yeah, it was
It's
always
funny.
they. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was always they. Dude, yeah, relationships are nuts. Like that's like all of our problems in life is just
I know.
relationships.
I know.
Oh
We
my
make all
gosh.
so many issues. What else? I think also too, for me, like I think trying, I know it's hard, but like a lot of times I feel discomfort too, trying my best just to like remind myself that like it's just today, or it's just at most what a few days
Hmm.
that I have to do something. Like it'll pass. I can get through it. I've made it through lots of things in the past. Like when I
Hmm.
really am like having a hard time, that's usually helpful too.
That's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. One day at a time, because you only got
Yeah.
to get through today. And
Yeah.
a few things that I did that helped. One was actually sitting outside, just like seeing the green grass and the water. That was like so
Oh,
helpful.
that can help a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And then another thing was like I felt the tension like all over my body. Like my jaw was tense, my eyes were
Yeah.
just exhausted from the tension. So like just doing this like shaking exercise where literally just standing up and shaking. Because out in the wild, animals like after like
Yeah,
some
they got
deer
like
gets chased by a cheetah and it survives, it'll like shake its whole body very fiercely, and that helps get rid of all the excess energy and so like I did
the
that and I felt
adrenaline and all that. Yeah.
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 So I did that and I felt better afterwards. And also Wim Hof breathing, like that was helpful as well to kind of clear my mind. But it was just like
You get some good ones though. Like
I was trying everything because I was like, this is not good. Like
no, but those are good ones though. Meditation of any
yeah.
kind, like giving yourself just also getting yourself out of the situation for 5 minutes so you can think for a second. Take it,
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong. Like I think that's the other thing we all struggle with is there's nothing wrong with removing yourself from a situation for a few minutes just to collect yourself.
Hmm.
Because I think like
Hmm.
that's one of our biggest mistakes is we think we have to stay there. Even if it's just like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom and just go to the bathroom by yourself for a few minutes and just breathe and whatever, just give yourself a chance to regroup. But the other thing you
Hmm.
said, the shaking thing is actually really a good one too, because I notice my dogs do that all the time. Like when they're playing, like they'll shake, because like they're
Uh-huh.
they're running around, they're high energy, and like that kind of signals the end of it. It's really
Hmm.
funny. Like one shakes and the other shakes, and like they get that energy out, and it's like they're good after that. But
Hmm.
like when they're like mid play, they're like real high, like hyped up, high energy, and it's like you need to come down before you go back in. I think we can learn a lot from looking at other animals because they all do the same thing. We are an animal.
Because we are we are
Yeah.
animals. Yeah,
Yeah.
we
We like
forget
to
that
forget that.
we're just hairless monkeys. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all we are. We even have
Uh,
less stuff to help us in the world.
I know, right?
No hair, no
Yeah,
claws, nothing.
yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. What else? You know what? Giving yourself the other thing that helps too, this is just a side, is like if I am uncomfortable all day, especially dealing with others, giving yourself time at night, just time alone for like an
Mm,
hour or something is very helpful to like regroup and like come back to
yeah,
yourself.
yeah. And asking yourself, am I tired? Am I hungry? Am I in pain?
Yeah,
Like
the three big
those for
ones.
me, dude.
Yeah,
If I'm feeling bad, it's almost guaranteed one of those three things. And I know
yeah,
recently I've been tired, and so
yeah.
like, yeah,
Dude, that
it's
was
just
me all weekend, dude. I was exhausted all weekend and mad all weekend because I was tired. And it's like the dumbest
mhm,
thing. Like
yeah.
it really is stupid. Instead of just letting yourself take a break, like, you know?
There was this child crying. Okay, so it's like funny when you can laugh at yourself. There was this child
Yeah.
crying, and I was like going to flip my lid at this child crying, and then I'm like, okay, who's the big baby here?
Yeah.
They're just
Ah!
vocalizing it. Yeah.
Yeah. They just
Yeah.
have the ability to do that. Isn't it
They
funny though?
they
We
have
get
the
so
ability to get over it immediately.
but you know what's funny? Like we get mad at our surroundings as if like we should somehow have control over it that we don't. Like I think it's you hit the nail on the head though. It's like it's being unable to accept reality for what it is. Really, that's what it is. I think like
Mm. Hmm.
and like I find myself doing it all the time. Like I get sick or something, or I get tired, and I get mad that that happened. And it's like, but I don't have control over that. I mean, the tired I
Hmm.
kind of do. I should sleep, but like we get upset about it, and there's really no reason. Like we just are refusing to accept the reality of the situation. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, it's so crazy. And then, oh my gosh. So then I'm reading these books. As if it wasn't bad enough, I was also reading these books on like cyber security and cyber war, and that stuff
Oh
just
yeah, which is like
terrifies me
terrifying. Yes, it
because like
is.
from reading these books, this is the second or third book that I've read, and the US looks like in such trouble from China and Russia on at
Yeah.
least the cyber war stuff. Like it's frightening. And so like reading as I'm like terrified of the future now. And then I'm
And
like
the
angry at
internet.
everything now. And it's just like, oh my gosh, where do I go from here? What do I do? And then I'm like, okay, I'm scared of my thoughts. My thoughts are terrorizing me. Like, are they actually doing anything right now? No. So it's just like, okay, let's just chill.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it too. Sometimes you have to like, because like it's weird, but I think when we get in that mood, we're also like attracted to heightening the mood. When you are uncomfortable, it's like you
Mm,
want to make yourself feel worse. Is that weird attraction to it? So like good example is like if you're stressed out about like the news, you end up watching more news, right? Instead of turning it off. So I think like recognizing it and walking away from that for a little while to also like come down a little bit from that emotion is not a bad thing. But it's hard to do. It is. It's really hard to recognize and pull off effectively.
mm. It is because it's we talked about it in our last quick fix, like the idea of success, that we have to
Yeah,
get somewhere other than where we are right now. That
yeah,
in order to succeed, in order to have a good life, it needs to be somewhere other than where we are right now, experiencing what we're experiencing right now.
yeah, yeah. Like right now can't be the good life. It has to be elsewhere.
It
And
has
so
to
you just
be. It
keep
has to
working.
be.
Yeah,
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 it has to be. Every advertiser out there has sold me that. It has to be somewhere else buying something much more expensive.
yeah, yeah. That's it. That's the good life. I know it's such a stupid idea we've accepted. Like it's so weird, but it's hard because you get told these things over and over again forever. It's like it is hard to break that cycle of thinking that way. It's like very difficult. Yeah.
Hmm.
Trying to think what else.
Yeah.
You know, just trying to like accept things for what they are is one of the biggest tricks I think. And the other side of it too, that this is just on the flip side of discomfort. I think we might have mentioned this before, but like I know like a lot of philosophers, like Nietzsche talks about reevaluating suffering, right? That we shouldn't look at suffering or discomfort as like something we should fight against and eradicate, but rather as a chance to grow. Like every time we face discomfort, every time we face a struggle or suffering, it's a chance to overcome some obstacle and grow. It's a chance to learn. And I think if you can flip it in your brain that way, because he had a really hard life. Like his life was hard. I was
Yeah.
unarguably terrible. Like,
Wasn't he like dying of syphilis or something like that, which
yeah,
was
his whole he was
probably
like
exceedingly
sickly.
painful and messing up his
Yeah.
brain too? Like,
Oh, dude, he had migraines. He could barely see. I mean, he was like sick all the time. Basically, he was like moving around to try and go to these climates that they thought would help, because back then that was a big deal. It was like climate was a big factor. And I think some of them,
because
certain climates gave him
they
relief.
didn't have
Yeah.
antibiotics, so like
Yeah.
that was all
Or
you could do.
Tylenol. So yeah,
Yeah.
he just kind of like moved around a lot. But yeah, I mean, like, but it's interesting when you look at it because like his life was so hard, but like thinking of suffering in this way like can change it though. I think it can. Like you can look at it as
Could
like a
you
chance to grow, a chance to get better. What imagine being
could you
back then.
imagine could you imagine a doctor nowadays being like, you got syphilis, go down to Georgia. And then you get down
Yeah.
there and the doctor's like, oh yeah, your syphilis is not better, not any better. Go to Vegas. And it's like, not any better. Okay, go to Alaska. And it's like,
try somewhere cold. Yeah.
yeah.
The
Oh
mountain.
my God.
Well, I
Oh
think it
my
was
God.
like the mountain air they thought would help or something. Yeah, it's like but yeah, dude, so like, you get he talks about like that. Mill talks about, when we were in like states of discomfort, that's like we recognize what's wrong. And so it gives us a chance to see how we could change the world. Like, so like if I realize I'm upset with my situation now, then maybe I need to work on my relationships, or maybe like I need to get out there and change things and make the world better. Like it's a way for us to recognize like what we can improve upon, I think too. So there
Mm.
is value in it. I think it's just hard because when we're in that state, it's all we see is it. It's so like close, if that makes sense.
Oh,
It's hard to
dude,
distance
100,
ourselves. Yeah.
100%. Because like, I mean, we talked about previously how your current mood affects your outlook on life. Like, just if you're feeling bad right now, you're going to feel like your life is terrible, and if you're feeling good right now, you're going to feel like your life is great. But
All
like,
weekend, I felt like my life was terrible. Today, I woke up,
dude,
I felt like my life
same,
was fine.
same, yeah, same. But it's like it's so difficult because to have any perspective when you're feeling terrible is just like the hardest thing ever, next to impossible.
Well, I think that's why maybe like trying to like, and I'm not saying this is easy, it is hard, but trying to look at them as opportunities to grow might be a more effective way than like even calling it, because I think like, do you ever notice like the first time when scientists discover something, like the first thing they do is name it. Because as soon as you name something, then you can start describing it, you start applying things to it, right? You have a way to reference it. So maybe naming things differently, or maybe like referring to things differently might be a good way. Like instead of discomfort, be like, oh, I face a challenge now, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
going to be a challenging day, or this is going to be an
Mm-hmm.
obstacle. Anything besides calling it that thing that, like, whatever, it is that gets to you that way. So it
Dude, there's
feels like it's
also
a,
that saying, name the dragon and it loses its power. Like
yeah,
once you recognize it, then you're like, ah, okay, cool. Discomfort.
yeah.
Gotcha.
How crazy is it? How crazy is it? Like 90% of the time, too, if you just, like, when you're bothered by something, if you just talk about it, you feel better even though nothing's changed. Isn't that funny? Like, I noticed that
Yeah.
the other day. Like, it's so weird.
I know.
It's,
It was good to be able to like talk to you about this and laugh about it because we're
yeah,
both like,
it
oh my
makes it
gosh, the
better.
suffering just whew,
Well,
is
dude,
relief for a few moments.
last night I went for a walk. I went for a walk with the dogs, and I was talking to Anna about it. And like, as soon as I talked about it, I felt better when I got home. And I was like, so all I need to do for the last 48 hours is just fucking talk about it. It would have been
Yep.
better. Like,
Oh
oh
my
God,
gosh.
it's ridiculous.
It's so
Well, we're
nuts.
just animals.
Yeah,
It's hard
dude,
being an
totally.
animal, isn't it? That can think.
Dude, it's crazy. It's crazy. So like when we were talking, I had this thought that I wanted to bring up because it was related to it, but now I forget what it's related to. But
That's
there's
okay.
there's the Johnny Appleseed song, and I just kind of like to sing it to myself because it's pretty interesting. It's like, the universe is good to me, um, because he gives me sun and rain and the apple seeds. So like it's just this guy who,
I am not
he get
familiar with this song. This is an
oh
actual
okay.
song?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
So
I don't
look
know
it
it.
up on YouTube, Johnny
I
Appleseed
will.
song. And it's really cool because it's like, I get the sun and the rain and I get the apple seed. And because of that, because the universe is there, I know my apple trees will still be there. And like just kind
Uh,
of singing this song to myself somewhat calms me because when I get into these like things where I'm just like it's a mess, it's never gonna work out, and I'm like, wait, it's not up to me. Like as long as I just keep planting seeds, my apple trees will still be there. So just
you just need a
chill.
lullaby.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I just need a child song. That's it.
That's it. No, I do like that though, 'cause that is true, right? As long that's what I think it's so funny because it's like we're afraid that things are gonna end. Like our imagination goes wild, but it's like tomorrow's gonna be there. You still have time. You're still alive. Like, it's so funny. Like I got in that mindset the other day where I was like, I don't have enough time. I can't do all this, man. And I was like, but I have tons of time. I've done so, dude, I was thinking about like when I stopped myself, I was like, in the past 10 months, I've done so much. Like growth in the past time. It's like, there's a ton of time left, but you get so panicked. It's so funny. Like I stress so much about it.
Dude, and literally, like we have 200 episodes handling like every situation, and
I know.
every time I'm handling something where I'm like, I don't think I have the resources for this. I scroll through, I listen to our episode, and I'm like,
I'm like,
oh,
oh
I
yeah,
already
I
knew the answer to
do.
this. Like,
Yeah, it is fun to talk about stuff because it doesn't sink in. It's like I think that's the problem too. We talked about that before though, but it's like, it's like you have all these tools and they just evaporate the second you need them.
any
It's like
perspective is gone once you need it. Like, thank goodness for being able to record these things and have them available.
I know. Yeah, I think that is the trick though. I think it is like getting perspective, identifying things and starting to like rename them and starting to like just like try and get that perspective. Like it is hard though, because it's like no matter how much you know, no matter how much resources you have to keep reminding yourself and going to them. And I think that's why people get so screwed up because they buy into these things of like, oh, change yourself in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, but it's like you might start the process, but the problem is you need to constantly go back to that well. And if you don't realize that, you're gonna keep thinking you're failing when in fact you're just struggling to grow, and that's what everybody does, Like
Yeah, dude, and it's like these crazy cycles because it's like we get into a mess and then it's like there's no way out, and then eventually you're like, okay, I can do this, and you start building up, and then things start going well because you're doing it, and then all of a sudden it's like any knowledge, any perspective that you had is just gone, and then
God,
all of a
yeah.
sudden you like fall into another well, and it's the same thing over again, and it's just like, oh my goodness, every single time.
You remember in Harry Potter when they took the wand, they took like their memories out? That's what it feels like.
Mm.
It's
Oh,
like so I can
totally.
put it back in, you know?
Totally. It's like sometimes I'm like, where is like when I listen to our old episodes, I'm like, where is this guy? Like right now, where is he?
Where'd he go? But yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's why Marcus Aurelius is an example we always come back to, but I think it's a good one because I think, his journal was literally just that. Like he kept coming back to the same problems. And I think we have this, but I think that's the screwed up conception we have is that like that quick fast forward to the other place of comfort. When the reality is like you got to keep working through it and it does get better over time. Because I know I'm way better at handling things now than I was in the past. I know that it still takes time and I still have days and that's okay, but you just got to keep moving forward and keep trying. That's the hard
Hmm.
part. Yeah.
Absolutely. Never give up. Just keep going.
And we have all the answers, but we just don't have them when we need them.
Isn't that funny? You have everything you need, just not when you need it.
Just not now. It'll come to you after and then you can laugh at it.
Yeah, isn't that?
Uh,
Oh, isn't that wonderful? Yeah, so I
you want
guess
to add
that's in a
anything?
nutshell how to
Yeah.
deal with discomfort.
Yeah. Just keep trucking along. You'll get there. Oh, God.
Just cry
Yeah. So
yourself through it. Like literally. Oh my
try and
gosh.
reinterpret it. I think reinterpreting is a good thing. So you try and give it a new meaning. But yes, that's
Hmm.
how to deal with discomfort. We'll be back later this week with a quick fix. Be sure to check it out. Check us out on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Like, subscribe, share. It helps us a lot. And until next time, later, Randy.
Later, Danny.